Welcome to Sacred Cow Shipyards, where no ship is safe from being called a piece of ship.
So, as always, we will start with the administrative stuff and move on to the fun stuff, as we always do, as I mentioned. If you don't like it, I will endeavor to add chapters to this particular episode, and if I don't remember to do so, well, I don't care. First off, I seem to have pushed the button on the YouTubes that activates not only Super Chat, but also Super Thanks, and also Super Stickers. I have no idea what any of that means. If you know, let me know, because I pushed the button and things happened, and now I have super things all over the place. Apparently they all cost money, so I haven't figured out how they work, because I don't spend money. But still, they're on, whatever that's worth. Probably nothing. But there you go, they're on, whatever. And hey, speaking of your various and sundry fiat currencies, in case you missed the YouTube post, and I honestly have no idea how you guys get notified about these posts, so I'm not going to blame you if you missed it, but there have been a few changes about how things are going to work around here. First off, as previously mentioned in the previous episode, there will no longer be a regular schedule for this particular channel. Things have gotten weird, and you will get what you get, and you will like it. But in the meantime, every week that there is not an episode here on the YouTubes, there will be something over on the Patreon system. And to get access to that, you merely need to pay a pittance of whatever the equivalent is in your particular currency for $1 a month, or approximately $10 a year. I have no idea how currency works. It doesn't seem like that much to me, but like I said, if you don't care about me reading random books, you don't need to subscribe. It's no big deal. On top of that, the access to the Discord is now subscription-based. Previously, you just had to pay your $1 fee, cancel after a month, and you had access to Discord in perpetuity. And in fact, all of those people, soft-fonts, organisms, and so on and so forth who did that will, in fact, have access to the Sacred Cow Shipyards Discord in perpetuity. From here on out, though, it is a subscription, and it will cost you approximately $5 a month, or I think it's approximately $50 a year. I don't know. I, again, do not specialize in currencies, but still, subscription-based. The basic driver is that I'm still testing my hypothesis that if you pay for something, you might value it. I seem to have been wrong in that in multiple regards, so I'm now going to a subscription model to see if I might be more right in that regard. Probably won't be, but you have to test the hypothesis, right? I guess. That's how science works, right? Anyways, just to be clear from my last episode, I am in fact back. I am experiencing some difficulties at the moment though, so episodes will, as previously mentioned, be a little irregular. And I will be taking ships apart and putting them back together and coming up with spare parts when I'm all said and done, just like we always have done previously. In fact, this week we are going to talk about the Tauree's pathetic attempts at making a capital spaceship, a spaceship of capital type. You know what I'm talking about. And to be specific, we will in fact be talking about the X-303 and the BC-304, which are radically different and not at all related to the X-302 and the X-301, which is something we should just go ahead and talk about right here, right now, because that's just fucking stupid! Okay, deep breath. Right. The whole stupidity of all of this is that the X-301 started out as a gold death glider onto which you humies bolted your technology. And you unintentionally triggered some sort of return protocol that was specifically designed to kill the occupants of the death glider, because the death glider had assumed that you stole it and you took it somewhere you were not supposed to, and now you're just going to die going slow boat speeds back to where you should be, because you're not attached to anything that can do hyperspace technology anymore. So yeah, you're going to be slow boating for a millennia. Sucks to be you. Now, the good news is that SG-1 was able to bypass that particular problem, but you idiot f***ing humies finally realized that trying to strap your technology onto alien technology was not going to end up so well for you humies, which led us to the X-302. In much the same way that the X-301 was based off the Death Glider, which was basically the all-role, all-purpose fighter for the Goa'uld, the X-302 was basically the U.S. Air Force's all-role, all-purposes space fighter. Mostly because they probably couldn't get funding for anything more than just one platform, because then it starts getting complicated and people start asking questions about how you have alien technology and why you're going into space and things like that. The difference is that the X-302 was entirely developed from human technology, from the ground up. Yes, it bears a similar resemblance to the Death Glider, but it is still entirely simply a human vehicle. No weird callback subroutines, no overgrown staff cannons, nothing like that. It is simply an Air Force fighter that happens to bear striking resemblance to a Death Glider. Weird that. But anyways, the point is both the X-301 and the X-302 are functionally fighters, whether we're talking about air superiority fighters or space superiority fighters or interceptors or Death Gliders. They still have a maximum crew of 2 and are meant for high-speed, low-drag combat between other vehicles of similar, smaller size. And then the X-303 happened. And is the X-303 a fighter? No, it's not. And does it have a maximum crew of 2? Oh, hell no, it totally does not. In fact, the X-303 is humanity's first attempt at an interstellar capital ship. Big ship. Why is it numbered in the same sequence as fighter's ship? I get that you Humies Air Force is comprised of a whole pile of people who get very upset when their room service food shows up cold or the air conditioning in their hotel goes out. But for heaven's sake, X-301 and X-302, sure, they make sense. They are both basically fighters. The X-303 is not a fighter, it's a capital ship. Why is it categorized in the same class? Why didn't you break out a separate class, like the Y or a Z or a Q or something? Why didn't you make this numbering system logical? Well, because again, we're talking about the Air Force, and they tack F and B and YF and all these other things onto things that are not normally always related. And frankly, the Air Force doesn't have a whole lot of understanding about crew-served ships. Oh, sure, they have the B-52 buff, and you idiot Humies will strap warp pylons onto its wings and pretend that's okay. That's still not a crew-served ship. Aircraft are not ships. Ships are not aircraft. And spacecraft are more similar with ships than they are with aircraft. That's simply a fact. And it's something your species really needs to come to terms with really, really quickly. There exists a specialization in your United States Navy that is perfectly suited for taking a ship out into space. They are called submariners. The environment outside of their submarine wants to kill them every day, all day. In fact, it wants to kill them orders of magnitude more than space wants to kill them. And yet you keep pretending that the Air Force has any hold on space, any reason to believe that they should be in space. They're the Air Force. Whereas the Navy has been running crew-run ships for as long as the Navy has existed, and been dealing with atmospheres that want to kill them for as long as your submarine forces existed. Why do you pretend the Air Force should be the people running spaceships? They have no idea. And they also have no idea how to name ships. Again, X for the Air Force basically means experimental. It's not really a class, it's just kind of like this big super group that they shove anything that can't be a fighter, bomber, interceptor, whatever into. Well, that's great, except now you have a fighter, and a no-joke capital ship in this group. Do you understand how badly you f***ed up here? And I guess technically they did, because the successor to the X-303 was the Bravo Charlie 304, BC 304. Battlecruiser 304. Oh, look, you're stealing the Navy's nomenclature, you walnuts! Except, despite actually stealing the correct nomenclature, they still managed to f it up. Because if it was the first of its BC class, it should have been the BC 300 or perhaps the BC 301. And instead, it was the BC 304. Because they're still chasing the X-301, the X-302, and the X-303, because basically, your United States Air Force is made up of idiots. And to make matters worse, there were at least 6 BC 304s, and they were all BC 304s, not BC 304, 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever. No, they were all just the BC 304. Who the f came up with this goddamn idiot design pattern? And worse than just the serial numbers, let's take a moment and talk about the names. Oh, the names. So the first and only X-303 was named Prometheus. Yeah. Y'all know how that guy ended up, right? I think we've actually talked about how that guy ended up on this channel previously. Why would you name a ship after that guy? I mean, yeah, he certainly gave humanity fire, and that's kind of awesome and all, but it didn't end up so well for him, right? And when you name the ship after him, well, we're mostly concerned about what happened to him. How would you do that? And then, to add insult to injury, the very first BC 304 was named Daedalus. Well, at least it wasn't Icarus. Which is kind of the problem, though. I mean, Daedalus was a master engineer and master scientist and master inventor and so on and so forth. But apparently he couldn't instruct his son to not fly too close to the sun effectively enough. And his son did fly too close to the sun. And we all know what happened then. So you want to name a starship, a warship, after a guy who couldn't keep his own son in line? Okay. Oh no, it keeps getting worse. Hold on. The next 304 was called the Odyssey. Oh, for fuck's sake. Who wrote this goddamn shit? Fuck. Do you know how the Odyssey came to happen? How, like, the actual story of the Odyssey came to happen? Odysseus got fucking lost. Mostly because he was a dick and greedy and stupid, but he got fucking lost for years. And you want to name a ship after his, I got my stupid ass lost voyage? Where the f*** does that make sense? When in the f*** did humanity just lose track of how important ship names are? I mean, seriously, again, Air Force, what the f***, man? Now, at least after those 3 goddamn failures, the United States Air Force finally dug their heads out of their cavernous asses and got their acts together about naming their ships appropriately. Because the next one was named Korolev after Sergei Korolev, who might as well be one of the founding fathers of your, space travel from your planet. He's kind of a big guy. You should kind of look him up. Unfortunately, the ship turned out to be nothing more than a plot device to get rid of some, honestly, awesome characters, which was kind of disappointing, but at least the name was kind of cool. After that came Apollo, which, I guess, as ship names go, can't argue with too much. And then Sun Tzu, which, yeah, not going to argue with that one at all. And then George Hammond. Yeah, given his, founding father aspect of the entire Stargate program, I really can't argue with that one in the slightest bit. But let's look at how non-contiguous, continuous, consistent those names are. We have the Daedalus, the Odyssey, the Korolev, Apollo, Sun Tzu, and George Hammond. Could we pick a fucking theme, you goddamn microwaved kumquats? All right, I know. Enough about the names and the serial numbers and everything else. I should probably talk about the actual ships in question. And honestly, I'm not going to do a whole lot of that because both the Prometheus and the Odyssey class ships are basically black boxes. Let's be perfectly honest here. The Prometheus was humanity's first attempt at an interstellar warship and did not go awesomely. And then the Odyssey family turned out to be fairly decent, but still wasn't great. And I'm going to pick on two things in particular to talk about, because I do that periodically. I don't know. First off, could we choose a design pattern aside from industrial chic? I mean, seriously, the Prometheus looks like some of you hummy, squishy things just grabbed a whole pile of shoeboxes and just shoved them all together. And it's ridiculously tall. And I know that doesn't actually make a whole lot of sense, because apparently you humies got artificial gravity technology somehow and inertial dampeners somehow and retrofitted them to fit your system, so it doesn't really matter how tall or wide the ship is. But still, it's really tall. Which I guess makes a certain degree of sense, given that it was built in an underground hangar, and it is supposedly technically easier to make a hole deeper than it is to make the hole wider, just because the door on top is easier to operate when it is narrower. Now, on the other hand, the Odyssey class, I don't know where the they were built, but they are just wide and flat and look dumb, to be honest here. I have no idea why the upper decks kind of like wrap over the engine nacelles like that, like wrap down. Why does that make sense? Why would you do that? What are you putting there? But regardless of the design particulars, what I'm trying to point out is that there was no aesthetic design growth. There's the Prometheus, which was a pile of shoeboxes. And then there's the Odyssey, which is like a mechanical pancake. And there's no clear indication of how you humies got from A to B. Now, in fairness, the Prometheus was mostly built out of reverse-engineered gold technology, and the Odyssey class was mostly built out of donated Asgard technology, so there would naturally be an aesthetic shift, aside from the fact that it's humies building it, and y'all didn't really care so much about the whole Egyptian motif or the weird curved translucent stuff that the Asgard use. So still, there should have been common design themes. Even the engines are different, for f***'s sake. All I'm trying to say here is that on average, you humies don't just do a design, figure out its defects, and then just like chunk the entire thing out the window and start over again. You do an iterative design process where you do one thing and you're like, okay, that works okay. Can we change these few things over here, 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 and here, and then make a new thing that actually looks similar to the old thing, but is better in these specific ways? And so it goes. You can see this design process in almost every industry you ever have. And these ships are about as related as, well, things that aren't related. Seriously, did the SG-1 design company just like fire their entire staff before they designed the next one? I don't know. So yes, my first major complaint with the Prometheus Odyssey family of Tari ships is that they do not satisfy my very haughty, very high fashion sense of what a starship should look like. Deal with it. But now that we've talked about the aesthetics, can we at least talk about the weapons a little? Maybe, kind of. The primary weapons of both the original Odyssey class and the Prometheus class are railguns. Yeah, let's think about that for a second. You're taking these starships up against, well, first a species and the multiple species who have been plying the space lanes for basically longer than humanity had a written language, in at least one case, and basically longer than humanity existed in another case. And you are going to throw hypervelocity rocks at them. Okay, cool. But you know what, spaceships who go out and do spaceship things have to protect themselves against? Hypervelocity rocks. They're all over the place. I mean, they're not very dense and they're not very common, but they are all over the place. And these ships that you're going up against frequently travel at like significant fractions of the speed of light without even getting to the whole hyperspace problem. But still, they move pretty fast, and if they were to accidentally encounter like a meteor storm or something, they would be able to protect themselves. So instead of a meteor storm, you're like plinking them with individual meteors and expecting that to work. Y'all didn't think this through very carefully, did you? I mean, seriously, you have captured death gliders, you have captured staff weapons of all shapes and sizes, and you went with railguns. Railguns. Okay. And then, predictably, your backup weapon for those railguns are missiles, which, should be obvious to anyone who knows anything about humanity. My question is, why are they in vertical launch tubes? Seriously, why are they in vertical launch tubes? Why does a starship need VLS cells? I guess the missiles have to come out of somewhere, but both the Prometheus and the Odyssey classes were designed to engage targets basically head-on. Yeah, the target could be anywhere on any axis, blah, 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 so on and so forth, but these ships were specifically designed to engage targets, in a frontal kind of way. So why are you wasting time and fuel popping the missiles out of the spine of the ship and then expecting them to do a whole 90-degree turn and launch themselves at the target while still correcting for having been popped out of the top of the ship? What does that buy you? Why would you do that? Why don't you put, proper missile tubes on, a forward-facing axis and then, accelerate the missiles out of the tube so they can get to the target faster? Because, yeah, popping them out of the tube and then expecting them to make a full 90-degree turn and then attack the target, that cost you, a second, 2 seconds, maybe, until it can start burning in the right direction. Or maybe, since we are in space, why not have, a VLS cell facing each of the 6 ordinal, cardinal, whatever, directions. Just have a 9-pack facing each of the 6 directions. And you fire off whichever one you need to be firing off, and if you run out of those, then sure, then we can start talking about popping one out the side of the ship or something, expecting to make that hard right turn and then take off to the target. But why are they all having to do that? As previously mentioned, these idiot warships are designed by the Air Force, and all of the Air Force's missiles are already pointed at the target because they all fire forward. Why are these different? It's like they took the ideas from the U.S. Navy and were like, oh, hey, it works in the Navy, it'll work in space too, right? Well, that's because the Air Force is run by idiots. We talked about that already. And this is all without even being sure where the bridges on the Prometheus or the Odyssey are. Based on what you're seeing out the front window on both of them, they're probably in the nose of the ship, which is the worst idea ever. But we're not going to talk about that right now because I have totally overrun my time. In short, if you want to go into space, in your current situation, let the Navy do it. Specifically, let submariners do it. Don't let the Air Force do it. They have no idea what they're doing. And that's all from Sacred Cow Shipyards. Please be advised that any ship left on the dock for more than 24 hours will be compressed to a cube at the owner's expense. Have a nice day.